UCT is a good university, a good institution with a good track record.
I always used to say to the students, you learn medicine at the bedside, not on your backside.
UCT Medical School is one of the most well-balanced medical schools in the world.
This is a university that talks about community engagement and actively promotes the notion.
Students know that they're getting the best preparation for whatever it is that they've chosen to do with their life.
It's great to see what's happening today, particularly when you compare it to what happened in the old days.
UCT Faculty of Health Sciences produces some of the best professionals this country has to offer.
The University of Cape Town Medical School opened on 6 June 1912, making it the first academic health sciences faculty in sub-Saharan Africa. Medical students were first taught at the Heading campus in the city, but the school's growth in the 1920s made a move to the current campus in Observatory necessary. Students first honed their clinical skills at Somerset Hospital. In 1938, this training moved to the newly built Groote Schuur Hospital, where students are still taught. The faculty's oldest known living graduate is Dr. Joe Barron, who, at 101 years old, still has fond memories of his time as a student.
It was very pleasant to work at Somerset Hospital. I worked in the fever hospital, and I remember most problems were in typhoid. We just kept giving them glucose intravenously every day, and when they ruptured their bowels, we called the surgeon in to sew them up.
Professor Stuart Saunders, who arrived on campus in 1948, also remembers the medical school in its earlier years.
Well, it was much smaller, much smaller. I think the total student enrollment was about 3,000 or 3,500. And I was actually registered by the registrar in his office. So the registrar then registered students one-on-one. We were fortunate because he really had outstanding teachers, both in the preclinical and the clinical years. We did clinical medicine for the whole of the fourth year with 4 tutors, and we were in the wards all the time. And I think that was the fundamental education that we received in how to take a history and how to examine a patient, which is so crucial in the education of young doctors.
UCT may have provided an excellent teaching environment, but it also shared in South Africa's turbulent history. One of the students who witnessed the impact of politics on the faculty was Professor Marion Jacobs, now Dean of Health Sciences.
At the time, UCT would only allow students of color to come there if we studied those degree programs that weren't available at other racially defined universities. And so I could have chosen to do engineering, architecture. I could have done a bachelor's degree with Latin or ballet or music or medicine. And I chose medicine as a default, if you like.
There were, I don't think, more than 4 or 5 students who would have been classified at the time as coloured. There were no African students. There were no African students in the medical school. And there were certainly no African doctors.
Another who experienced the discrimination of apartheid was Professor William Peck.
Perhaps one incident that stands out was we attended a lecture in dermatology at Groote Schuur Hospital, and what happened generally was students of color were accosted outside the lecture room and told, now you go behind that curtain in the corridor, where they would bring black patients for black students, and then the white patients would go to the white students. And we were then accosted and asked to go stand behind the screen. But one of my friends came in, and while they were ushering us around the screen, he slipped, he didn't know, and he went in. And the head of department, whose name I will not mention, shouted at him and called him. Now the words are still vivid, I can remember the words. He said, "You, non-white, get out."
There were 3 laboratories. One laboratory was for white male students. The other laboratory was for black male students, i.e. colored and Indian students. And the third laboratory was for female students. But because we were a mixed group in that laboratory, the bodies that we dissected had to be black female bodies. And when we got into our clinical years, we could only go into the black wards.
I, in fact, regard the environment at that time as being hostile. It was hostile, not in a physically hostile sense, but you felt unwelcome in that environment.
We weren't happy about the segregated nature of our training, but the reality is, of course, that the burden of disease then and still now fell on those who are the poorest. And at that time, and to a large extent now, they are people who are black. So the pathology in the black wards was far more interesting in many ways than in the white wards. And so there was a kind of really perverse compensation for this segregation.
Meanwhile, the UCT Medical School's reputation for innovation was growing. Researchers in the faculty had developed the first test for pregnancy using frogs, and Ellen MacLeod Cormack had done pioneering work that led to the development of the CAT scanner, for which he was later awarded a Nobel Prize. Perhaps the most famous achievement was the world's first heart transplant, performed by Dr. Chris Barnard in 1967. This put UCT firmly on the map.
And on the night of the heart transplant, I went up to the hospital to see patients, about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and got in the lift, and Chris Barnard got in the lift. And he said to me that he was going to do a heart transplant. So I said, "Oh, really?" I wasn't impressed at all.
The procedure began at 10 at night. Denise Darville was brought into the operating theatre, having been killed in a car accident. It took Dr. Barnard and his team 9 hours to transplant Miss Darville's heart into Louis Washkansky. All the while, they were unsure whether the procedure would be a success. At 6 the next morning, they had their answer. Barnard stood back and pronounced, "It worked." For the first time in history, a human heart from one person beat in the chest of another.
The next morning when I opened the newspaper, I realized, how it had affected the world. It was obviously an event of great importance. Being the first place to do the heart transplant meant that people in Rome or Vladivostok or San Francisco knew about Groote Schuur Hospital and Cape Town and the University of Cape Town.
I hold a number of positions in international bodies now, and whether I'm in Bangladesh or in Boston, people will talk about the medical school and talk about Groote Schuur Hospital and talk about Barnard. So Barnard then became an icon for both the hospital and South African healthcare, if you like. The 60s in South Africa, also a fairly turbulent time politically. Sharpeville, on the one hand. On the other hand, Chris Barnard was doing the first heart transplant. So this juxtaposition of the best in the world and the worst in terms of humanity.
By the late 1980s, a lot had changed at UCT Medical School. Through the efforts of staff and students, black African medical students were being enrolled in classes. And when the new hospital at Groote Schuur was completed in 1987, it was the first and only racially integrated hospital in South Africa. Today, UCT's Faculty of Health Sciences educates almost 4,000 students each year from all corners of the country. The staff has a strong reputation for teaching healthcare and research excellence. Professor Bongani Mayosi views his roles as doctor and teacher as equally important.
A doctor, in fact, is first and foremost a teacher. The idea of transmitting knowledge to others comes with territory when you are a medical doctor. So that working in a teaching hospital, interacting with students, interacting with other doctors who are training as specialists, interacting with research students who are trying to discover new knowledge, then becomes natural to a doctor.
Professor Mayosi believes in a close collaboration with his students.
I think it is true that one bases one's life on an example that you see. That, for me, is what mentorship is about. It's about making sure that as you make progress in your career, you in fact bring others with you so that they are not like you, in fact, they become better than you.
One of them is Itumeleng Tatamala, currently in his final year of medical studies.
The first inkling of becoming a health professional started in grade 5. There was a teacher called Mem Malaji who taught me science and maths, and she suggested right at an early age that you're quite good in mathematics, you're quite good in science. Why not consider going into medicine and actually becoming a medical doctor? But I think deep down I wanted to actually give back to my community. I actually wanted to in some way relieve the suffering that one sees in our communities. So medicine was, for me, the best choice.
And Itumeleng has wasted no time in giving back to the faculty.
The mentorship program is a program that I personally was part of, both as a mentee in first year and as a mentor in third year. It's a program by the faculty whereby senior students in second year and third year are paired up with about 5 to 6 first-year students, and their responsibility is to mentor them throughout the first year of study.
It is through programs like these that the faculty ensures the academic well-being of its students.
We know very well of universities out there where there's a huge intake of previously disadvantaged students, but at the end of the day, these students drop out in their first year. They drop out before they complete their degrees. So I think the throughput is quite good, and that is a reflection of the support that UCT actually offers.
My students, in fact, teach me more about medicine than I teach them, because they ask me questions about certain assumptions that I have made, and I realize that those assumptions, in fact, are not based on good information. So my relationship with my students is that of a partnership in learning, and they challenge me, I challenge them, and we learn together. Because these students, these very students, will become my doctor in my old age. So I'd better start now regarding them as my friends and as my colleagues.
While the faculty has worked hard to address the demographic imbalance of the past, this is not the only area in which it has made changes.
The second shift has been from a medical school to a faculty of health sciences. And in doing that, we embrace the notion of primary health care, which talks about a whole team of people being responsible for healthcare.
It was this change that brought together under one roof the disciplines of speech-language therapy and audiology, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and nursing and midwifery.
Initially, we were separate departments representing different academic programs, but also different professions. And now we are 4 professions in the same department called Health and Rehabilitation Sciences. And whilst we knew that we always contributed to the health and well-being of the South African population, coming together made our contribution more felt in the faculty. In our department, we've really worked hard to find areas of commonality and making sure that where we can, our students learn alongside each other without losing the core strengths that each of the different professions bring. So referral pathways are strengthened. People know their strengths, while they also know the contribution of the other professions.
And by changing the name, we not only focus on the cure of the sick, but also promotion of the health of the well, and also rehabilitation, which accompanied an adoption by the faculty of primary health care as a philosophy of social justice in healthcare.
In keeping with its aim to educate health practitioners who are equipped to serve the community, the faculty students receive appropriate training in more than 80 public health facilities across the health system. Through this, they learn practical skills and experience real-life health settings. This can be seen in action at the Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital.
The Children's Hospital is intimately connected with the University of Cape Town. Almost all the clinical staff, so those are the doctors providing care, have a joint appointment. So they are accountable both to the university and to the province, who are responsible for the clinical services. The research, the advocacy, and the training all fall directly under the University of Cape Town. So all the students who come through are University of Cape Town students. All our postgraduate students are registered with the University of Cape Town. So for example, people training in pediatrics, all the African fellows who are training with us are also registered with the University of Cape Town. So it's a very symbiotic relationship, and actually each strengthens the others, because the research and training strengthens clinical services and the services strengthen the university work.
The ability to respond to the health needs of South Africa and the continent would not be possible without the faculty's firm emphasis on research.
We have some of the leading researchers in the world in this faculty, and we continue to attract them, and most of them are South African.
One such facility is the Institute of Infectious Disease and Molecular Medicine.
The Institute was created with a strategic intent about bringing a cluster of complementary skills and disciplines around specific areas, problem areas that are plaguing the health of African people.
The Institute's researchers tackle a broad range of conditions, from infectious diseases, particularly HIV/AIDS and tuberculosis, to non-communicable diseases such as cancers. Professor Valerie Mizrahi has a particular interest in TB, a field that highlights the faculty's approach to translating research from the laboratory to the bedside and the community.
I became interested in studying TB about 18 years ago, but my focus is on studying microbiology. I study the organism that causes TB. TB, of course, is a complex infectious disease, and we have within this institute the other side of studying TB is from studying the way in which the host responds to infection with this particular pathogen. So there is very considerable strength here in clinical as well as experimental immunology.
The research that they do focuses on the needs of the poorest of the poor.
UCT has chosen to partner with communities who are most likely to benefit from the research.
Outreach and community engagement is absolutely critical. The groups that I've mentioned, not just in the TB field, all of our major research groups have got active community engagement programs.
So SATRI is a research group at the University of Cape Town. We've got a vision. Our vision is a world without TB. Okay, so obviously to get rid of TB you can do various things. We think that the best approach would be to actually prevent TB, and that's why we're developing TB vaccines. We've been able to actually, in a very tangible manner, assess what the impact of just having researchers out there has had on the community, and that's been fantastic. Certain types of TB have even disappeared, it appears. And so I think just in being there, we're making a huge impact on the community there.
Ever since my child has been under the study, she hasn't got sick or anything, unlike the other children that was born with her on that same day. The study has improved a lot, especially in the health.
Being in an institute where there are basic scientists working side by side with clinical researchers who are doing their work in communities in and around Cape Town that are afflicted tragically by the health problems that we are trying to research and trying to come up with solutions to. That continuum gives you an ability to tackle problems at a level that is going to be significant and impactful.
Because our population is in this transition from infectious disease right through to disease of lifestyle, the teaching that we get offered at UCT offers us, or rather prepares us quite well to deal with both these pandemics.
I mean, I know students who, having graduated and done their internship, have gone out to work in hospitals in this country, who've been exposed to clinical experiences which you simply would not have in any developed country in the world.
I guess that explains why Canada, the US and others are so keen on actually, shall I say, poaching some of South Africa's doctors and health professionals.
And so that established that enviable reputation that our graduates were top graduates.
Although they're able to work anywhere in the world, many graduates choose to remain on home soil.
A passion of mine is rural healthcare, and what I plan to do over the next few years is to actually go back to my province, Limpopo province, and actually work in the secondary hospitals and the rural hospitals there.
They want to work here, they want to work in the public sector, and they want to do the best they can for their country.
After all, the finest boast of the Faculty of Health Sciences is its students.
I think what I like best about studying at UCT is the fact that it's a historical school, so you know that you're being taught by the best, and I like that because it's good for me. It means that I'm getting a good grounding in my medical career.
One of my mentors in the medical field told me that UCT Medical School is the best medical faculty ever, and that it would be a dream to study there, and if I could get in, it would do wonders for my medical career.
Back home in the community, if I'll be able to acquire a lot of skills and be able to give back to my community where I come from.
So after graduating, I'm going to do 2 years internship, community service after that, and then I want a 4-year registrar post in internal medicine so that I'll be a physician by the time in my late 20s, that is.
I want to become a pediatric neurosurgeon, so I'm hoping that, hoping of coming back here to UCT and, furthering that.
And then only if we can improve the health system of Eastern Cape, that would be great for me.
UCT Health Sciences faculty is where health professionals of the future will be coming from.
We want to produce competent, innovative leaders in medicine.
With skills, ways of being that will set them to be a real resource for South Africa.
So that Africa's turn may indeed come as the place where others want to come to learn about medicine, about innovation, and about invention.
With a clear view of the faculty's journey over the past century, the UCT staff and students now look ahead to the next 100 years.
So I'm in the fortunate position of being able to look back, to be part of what we've achieved until now, and to look into a crystal ball for the future. And all I see are wonderful things.
The Health Sciences faculty reflects the changing South Africa.
I hope that UCT will be remembered for making an impact on the societal problems that affect not just South Africa, but Africa as a whole.
We are producing PhDs, we are producing specialists, we are training doctors and scientists for no less than 10 countries in the sub-Saharan African region.
I feel like this is an amazing faculty. Like there's a community. It feels like family.
UCT is the best, so if you want to be the best, you need to be at a place that is the best.
I think this faculty is going places in the next centenary, and I'll be watching from above and cheering.
100 years of education, research, innovation, training and service has brought the Faculty of Health Sciences to where it stands today. As each generation moves on, it ensures that the baton is passed to the following one. Looking to the next 100 years, the faculty could not be better poised to continue its legacy of excellence and relevance. In the words of one of its graduates,
I think it is the best in the world.